Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Baron and this is your Brain on Books, and today we're going to go over what did I read in March and what am I planning on reading in April. And March, I gotta say, it was a great reading month for me. I didn't read as much as I had hoped to, but that's kind of how it goes every time, and that's all right. But I was able to get to 9 books. I had some 5-star reads. I have a new favorite and a couple DNFs, and I was able to really mix up the genre a lot, something I enjoyed doing, and I hope to carry over into April. But let's just get right on to it, with the first book that I read in March being The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. Now, I did a full review for this on the channel already. I'll leave the link below if you kind of want to hear my long-form thoughts, but just to keep it brief and just kind of touch on my general impression, I thought this book was absolutely incredible. This was a 5-star read for me, kicked off the month strong. This is that cerebral, thought-provoking science fiction that I absolutely love, and the approach was different. It was thrilling. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It had this puzzle box component that was just so well executed. And all in all, I thought this was an absolute masterpiece for science fiction. I do plan on continuing the series. I wanted to pick up book 2 kind of right away, but that didn't happen. And at this point, I'm not too sure when I'm going to get to it. Probably a little later in the year, if I'm going to be honest, because I have a lot of kind of buddy reads planned and other stuff that's kind of getting in the way. But nonetheless, I'm excited to continue and see where this story goes. So moving on from there, I had the first DNF of the month, and that was The Fisherman by John Langan. Now, I made it about 40% through this novel, and this was a bummer because this book I had such high hopes for. It's been on my TBR or want to read list for at least a year, and I thought it was going to be a perfect fit for me. I knew it was slow, character focused, cosmic horror kind of story. It's relatively short. Perfect, right? Everything I typically enjoy. But I just felt so detached to this novel very quickly, and I think the ideas, although interesting, the scope might have been greater than Langan's actual writing ability. Maybe that's unfair because I didn't finish it to see if he stuck the landing. I haven't read any of his works, but this first sampling proved to be a big letdown overall. Now, quick premise, at least what I experienced, is you have a man who just lost his wife and he's going through the grieving process. He picks up fishing as kind of a coping mechanism and also a new hobby. He meets a friend who's kind of at a similar place in his life, and they link up and kind of stumble upon this creek that has a bunch of mystery that's surrounding it, and it's kind of supernatural component, but it just was confusing at times and disjointed, and like I said, I just lost interest quick. So disappointment, but that's how it goes sometimes. So what can you do? Now, moving on from there, I read Wendys Button by Stephen King and Richard Chizmar. This is the first entry in what I know is the Gwendy trilogy, I believe. I'm not too sure what the actual series is called, but this is a short one, a little over 100-page novella. We are doing a read-along on the channel, and we're doing 1 book a month. We're actually starting Gwendy's Magic Feather in April, which I'll touch on when we get to the TBR. And this was interesting. I liked it. It wasn't amazing, didn't blow me away, but I thought Gwendy as a character was really interesting. I thought the magical component that was introduced was kind of unique compared to other stuff I read from Stephen King. There's a return of a well-loved but also well-hated villain from the Stephen King multiverse, and that was pretty cool. So yeah, it was good. I ended up rating it 3 stars. Like I said, it didn't blow me away, but it got me excited to continue the series. I just kind of was left wanting more. There was stuff that was just quickly touched on, just, by the framework of such a short novella, that I just wanted to know more about, and I hope to get it in the next couple books. So moving on from there, I read Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, this was my first Tchaikovsky book, and this was an awesome experience. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, and I will say I think I made a mistake reading this so close to The Three-Body Problem, because there's a big overlap on some of the themes and ideas that these 2 books explore, specifically around kind of the cooperation in society and how it leads to progress or lack thereof. And, I think Three-Body Problem just kind of handled some of these concepts a little bit better. At least it was more interesting for me overall, and I think it was just kind of more of a well-crafted story. But I still enjoy Children of Time quite a bit. And it does have a big component of it being accelerated evolution, which is a topic that I am curious about. I've tinfoil hat bearer deep dives into that all the time. But this manifests itself into sentient spiders. Now, I knew there was going to be sentient spiders in this before I picked up the novel, and I don't know, my expectation was way off, but I thought it was going to be some type of like warring Starship Troopers space opera kind of thing, and it was not that at all. You're really just seeing kind of the establishment and growth and structures of a society that is just in such a different form, and you see it through the eyes of these actual spiders. And it was interesting. There was some thought-provoking stuff in this book, and it was well executed. I wasn't nuts on Tchaikovsky's writing style. It was a little sterile, but that kind of happens a lot with sci-fi, if we're going to be honest, and it served the story well. So 4 stars for me on Children of Time. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue this series. There's one more book. We'll see. Maybe if I'm in the mood for some spiders in the future, I'll jump on it. But as of right now, I think I'm good with just the one book. So going on from there, I read The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Now, I'm going to touch on this book briefly because I very much want to do a full review of this story. Recency bias is a funny thing, but as of today, The Road is the best book that I've read in 2022, hands down. This book, in my eyes, was perfect. I wouldn't change a word. I wouldn't change a thing about it. It does everything that I love to see in fiction. It's emotionally impactful. It has beautiful writing. It has this rich allegory and just subtext, and just left me thinking and dissecting the book over and over again, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Just a masterwork, and I'm kicking myself because I put off reading this book for way too long. It's been sitting on my shelf because I had PTSD from reading Blood Meridian, and I was just so convinced that Cormac McCarthy was absolutely insane, and he might be, but The Road was a masterpiece, and it has sparked a new interest for me in reading more Cormac McCarthy in the future, and we'll touch on that later when we get to the TBR, because, spoiler alert, there's some in there. So going on from there, I read Revival by Stephen King. There's another one I've been putting off for a while, and I just kind of got a bug up my butt one day that I'm like, I got to read Stephen King. What am I going to do? And I just grabbed Revival and went for it, and I'm happy I did. This was really cool story. I'm not going to touch on the premise too much because it's kind of a twisty-turny, almost thriller to some degree, but it does a lot of stuff that I love about Stephen King. It has this coming-of-age components. It has quirky, three-dimensional characters, and this book is truly a horror novel. Some of the more modern King books, I don't think really have that terrifying element like some of his early works do. The Revival does. Revival is a scary book overall, and the ending is crazy. It's explosive. I didn't see it coming at all, and I highly recommend this book. And like I said, it has a lot of stuff I love about Stephen King, but yet one thing that's different about Revival is the source of terror he introduced isn't so much on like the distortion of the human condition. It's really idea focused. It's very Lovecraftian in nature. And unlike the Lovecraft elements in The Fisherman that I talked about earlier, Stephen King's a great writer, and he executed it flawlessly. So, going on from there, I have another DNF, or I don't know if I'm willing to call this a DNF at this point, but this is Carrion Comfort by Dan Simmons. I'm about 60% of the way through this book and struggling hard with it. Now, I like Dan Simmons' writing. There's no doubt reading this that he's an exceptional writer. Some of the scenes in this book are incredible. Some of the ideas are incredible, but yet everything is just so stretched out and long-winded that I'm just really struggling to want to pick it up. So kind of what I've been doing throughout March is I would read like 100 pages and then I'd read a whole nother book. And then I'd read 100 pages and read a whole nother book. And I just kind of kept doing that, and I got to a point where I was like, why am I even doing this? Do I even want to read this? And I just shelved it for the time being. And I might get back to it, but it didn't grab me as much as I expected to, which is kind of weird because it started so strong. The first 200 pages of this novel it was a banger. It was awesome. And then it just nosedived so much. So if you've read Carrion Comfort, let me know what you think. Should I push through? Should I keep going? I want to know. Because this is a well-loved book in the horror community. Even Stephen King said it's like one of the 3 greatest horror novels ever written, and I've yet to feel that with it. So quick premise of the book, it really deals with vampirism, but not in like the sanguine sense. It really is more like mind control and manipulation, and like even how that falls into historical events and stuff. It's pretty interesting, the way that it's being dealt with. But there's also a pretty big ick factor from Dan Simmons. He doesn't hold back his punches at all, especially when it comes to like graphic content, sexual content stuff. It's brutal. It's very brutal. So, going on from there, this was another buddy read on the channel, and that was Hondo by Louis L'Amour. I've been on a Western kick for a little while, and there's a couple other people on the channel Discord that I've been reading these Westerns with, and it's been a lot of fun. So we're kind of been going through the classics, and Hondo is one of those classics, and it was a quick, like 300-page story. It was just okay for me. It was a little bit of a disappointment, but I guess I didn't expect too much. It's really the lone wolf story. It's kind of everything you expect in a Western. Very tropey overall. But it was okay. It was a fun, light-hearted read that I would recommend if maybe somebody who hasn't read Westerns before and they want to try something, kind of just dip their toes in it a bit. Hondo is a great book for that. But I've read some of the kind of big ones like Lonesome Dove that are just kind of just masterpieces. So comparing Hondo to something like that, they're just 2 completely different things. But happy I read it. And I might read more L'Amour in the future. I have some of the Sackett books, and those seem interesting to me because the setting's quite a bit different, and I like the idea of following a family over long periods of time. I think that would be kind of cool. So, the last book that I read in March is The Ballad of Black Tom. Now, I actually just finished this one yesterday and was incredibly impressed with this. This is a very short story. It is a horror novel. It is a redo of a Lovecraft story that I cannot think of the name of for the life of me right now. So we're just going to move on from there. But it's about a black man in Harlem who's a musician, walks around his guitar case, and kind of gets thrown into high society. He's hired for a gig and is exposed to some really crazy supernatural stuff. I mean, we're dealing with kind of, I want to say like different multi-dimensional time travel kind of existence stuff. But it was just so cool. And the way Victor Lavelle handled this book was executed perfectly. I mean, with how short it was, he kept the pace. It just kept going and going and going. I didn't want to put it back down at any point. And the way the book finished, it was terrifying. This was a scary, creepy, good horror novel. And I haven't had a lot of those from a while. It's been a while. I mean, I did read Revival, and that was good. But this one got me. This one definitely got me. The ending for this book was creepy. So if you're looking for something like that, pick up The Ballad of Black Tom. It's a short one. It does some interesting, unique things that I haven't seen done kind of in too many other places. And I overall think you would enjoy it. So that's what I read in March. Now let's get on to April TBR. Now, I'm kind of weird with TBRs. I like to kind of have a loose outline of what I'm going to plan to read in the next month, but I don't always stick to it. I'm a big mood reader, and I often make TBRs, and then I just ditch books, and I just kind of go rogue and do what I feel like. But I do have a couple buddy reads that I plan on getting to, and I want to touch on those. The first book is Anathem by Neil Stevenson. I've already started this. We're doing a full read-along on the channel Discord. If you're interested, I'll leave the Discord link in the description. Come join us. We just started the book, and I think everybody's going to kind of be taking their time with this one. This is a big, dense, massive tome. I'm only through the first part, and I can say immediately it is unlike anything I've ever read. It is quirky. It is weird. I am ready for it. One thing I did not expect is I've actually kind of been laughing quite a bit. There's like this underlying levity and absurdness to what's going on in this novel. And I don't know if that's the point or that's just been my experience so far, but yeah, it's this book's a trip. So looking forward to continuing with that one. So the next book I actually have already started is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Now, I am an absolute sham of a Californian because I have not read John Steinbeck. I love to read. I live in California. I spent time in the Salinas Valley, and I've never read Steinbeck. What the heck's wrong with me, right? So I have to do it. I have picked up East of Eden off, the bookstore shelves 100 times. Look at it, put it back. Look at it, put it back. And I don't know why, but 2 days ago, I said, that's it. I want to read East of Eden. I got in my car, I drove to the bookstore, I bought it, came home, started reading it immediately. And I'm only like 20% through this book, and I'm already amazed how fast Steinbeck was able to establish the setting, these three-dimensional characters, and get me just roped in and emotionally invested in them so fast is incredible. And you really see that from these classic authors, and it's just so good. I feel like when I'm reading this book, I just feel like I'm putting on like a weighted blanket, and I just want to like curl up into it and just keep pushing through. So very excited to continue with East of Eden. So next up I have in April is a short novella called Comfort Me in Apples by Catherine Valente. Now this book I don't know that much about at all. It's just been getting a lot of buzz online about being kind of this horror thriller. It's quite short, and I saw the cover for it, and I'm like, that looks pretty wild. I don't know what's going on there, but I gotta find out. So, quick book. I'm gonna read this. I've been curious about it for a while, and since I've just seen so many glowing reviews, I have no excuse not to try it. So that'll definitely be happening in April. And next up is Gwendys Magic Feather, which I already touched on, so that's book 2 in the Gwendy trilogy. Once again, this is a channel read-along we have going. If you're interested, come join us. Link will be below. And the last book that I have planned for in April is No Country for Old Men. This is another Cormac McCarthy book. It's a short one. It's one that a lot of fans love overall, and I am just eager to get more of his writing. Now, I have never seen the movie, which I am so thankful that I have not watched it, because I don't know what this story's about. But nonetheless, I need more of his writing. So that's absolutely going to be happening in April. And beyond that, we'll see. Like I said, I mood read, I jump around. If you have any suggestions, anything you'd like to see me read or talk about on the channel, let me know down below. And that's it. So you've hung out till the end. Thank you. Until next time, see ya.